الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على النبي الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Tonight's recitation will include Surah Al-Anbiya and Surah Al-Hajj. And Surah Al-Anbiya was a Makkan surah which focuses on the stories of the prophets. This is where it gets its name from. In fact, there are 16 prophets mentioned by name in the surah. And so this is the most stories of the prophets found in one surah. And then Surah Hajj is one of those few surahs in the Quran where the ulama have a difference of opinion on whether it is Makkan or Medina. And what seems to be the strongest opinion is that it wasn't revealed all at once. Some of its verses were revealed towards the end of the Makkah period, and some of its verses in the beginning of the Medinan period. And so that's why it discusses topics which were relevant to both Makkah and Medina. Now, one of the things that these two surahs have in common, there's actually many things they have in common. One of them is the beginnings of the surah. Both of these surahs begin with a very strict warning about the Day of Judgment. They both begin with very hard-hitting verses about the description of what the Day of Judgment is going to be like. So these are generally Makkan verses which were there to hit the Quraysh hard in their hearts, to make them reflect on the Akhirah and make them realize the importance of accepting Islam. And these verses should strike our hearts as well and make sure that we too are focused on preparing for the Akhirah and not just focused on this dunya. Remember the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when a man asked him when is the Day of Judgment, Rasulullah ﷺ replied, what have you prepared for it? And that is really our mindset, that we should be preparing for the Day of Judgment because none of us know when it is our last day on this earth. So this is one of the things they have in common. Another thing that these two surahs have in common is the legacy of the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. So Surah Al-Anbiya tells us the stories of the prophets, Ibrahim alayhi salam and his descendants. And we know most of the prophets that came after Ibrahim alayhi salam are his descendants. His nephew Lut alayhi salam, his sons Ismail and Ishaq, his grandson Yaqub, his great-grandson Yusuf, and even all the later prophets, Dawood, Sulaiman, Musa, Harun, Isa, even the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all of them are descendants of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. And so this is the Abrahamic legacy, the legacy of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. And then Surah Al-Hajj gives us a different perspective on the legacy of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, and that is the Hajj itself. That the person who was instructed to begin the Hajj was Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. And in the surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us the story where He commanded the Prophet Ibrahim to give the call for Hajj. And the Prophet Ibrahim wondered, who will come? Because he is in a barren desert, an empty land, calling people for Hajj. Who will come? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, you give the call and I will make sure they come with every type of transportation. And subhanallah, thousands of years later, that call was given by Ibrahim alayhi salam thousands of years ago. Now, right until today, every single year, millions of people respond to that call. And there's an interesting point in this verse, is that it talks about coming on every type of transportation. So people came in the past on camels, and they came in the past on horses, and now people go for Hajj with airplanes, and with trains, and with cars. So it's as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not just including the transportation of the past, but what's to come in the future as well. One of the lessons we can take from this is that when we do something sincerely for the sake of Allah, He will put barakah in it. And sometimes you look like what you're going to do, that you wonder like who's going to come, who's going to attend, who's going to benefit, who's this going to reach. Don't worry about all of that. In this day and age, we worry so much about how many people view our videos, how many people like our posts, how many people subscribe to our channels. A Muslim shouldn't worry about all of that. Your worry should be about pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If what you are doing is sincerely for the sake of Allah, Allah will put barakah in it and He will reach who He needs to reach, and you will receive your reward for that. So these are some of the lessons we can take from Surah Al-Anbiya and Surah Hajj. Subhana Rabbil Izzati Amma Yasifun wa Salamun ala Mursaleen walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin.